G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of SuperCoach Edge and another entry for the BBL SuperCoach format, which is looking at the countdown clock on the SuperCoach website, 10 days, 4 hours, 28 minutes and 25 seconds as I record this away from starting. So really, things are ramping up. News is dropping left, right, and center, and mostly, I guess, surrounding injuries, which isn't the most ideal preparation for all of us super coaches out there in trying to select the optimal lineup. So we are back to not only give, I guess, a bit of an update with our own team lineup, but also just run through some of the injury updates as well as availability side of things as well, because a couple of notable players have dropped out, which has allowed, I guess, opportunity to open up for other players and especially some absolute bargains out there. So I will run through those. But first and foremost, let's roll through quickly the just some updates with regards to injuries. So really, it has been a curse of, the side strain, because it's kind of like the new syndesmosis injury that was all the rage in the AFL, where every player was going down with, syndesmosis injury, which, is an ankle, foot injury. But now it is the side strain for the cricket side of things, and especially BBL preparation. So a whole heap have gone down with side strains. And of course, primarily, a lot of those have been, just bowlers with the nature of the injury. And it all started going back probably around about 3-4 weeks ago now, maybe a little bit longer. I think it was right after I released my team video. And it was with Jordan Buckingham. So the young bowler, the dynamo really from the Strikers, he was initially thought to have gone down with a side strain, but in fact it turned out to be a bit of a hairline fracture of a rib. So thankfully, latest updates there show him as being on track to be ready for the start of BBL, which is really, really crucial considering that he is bottom price, 39.5k, and an absolute bargain for all of us, and especially considering, as we know, the Strikers do have a double in round 2. So we need the likes of him to be available. So things are looking up there for Buckingham. Now, his teammate, also of the Strikers, obviously, James Bazley, he sustained a side strain playing for Queensland and has not been given a real solid recovery timeline. So it's an unknown if he will be back for the start of BBL, let alone the Strikers double game in round 2. Continuing on with the side strain pandemic, and we also have Will Sutherland. Now, he was another victim, but recent updates as of 2 to 3 weeks ago were that he would be on track to be available for the start of BBL. But given he's rarely bowling nowadays, and we saw it in the BBL last season, where expectations were that he was, to be a traditional all-rounder, batting higher up the order, and also rolling the arm over. But very rarely did that happen, and it wasn't really due to injuries. So I guess the jury's out. The question marks surround him, especially now considering that he is coming back from injury. And then you combine it with the fact that he is a high price point. So personally, even though I had him in my initial lineup, I am actually going to be bypassing him now, especially off the back of this news that he is recovering from a side strain. Now, of the heat, Michael Nisa, he injured his hamstring tendon bowling for Queensland, and whilst he is listed as 4 to 6 weeks recovery timeline, given it is a tendon issue and not just a simple hamstring muscle, his timeline is I guess up in the air. It could be extended beyond the 4 to 6 weeks. As you can see there, there's a 2-week buffer window there they've allowed themselves. But with a tendon, they don't really want to have the player coming back sooner than what's needed, because you can easily aggravate it and or re-aggravate it in this case and re-injure things. So that's where things stand with Michael Nisa. Sticking now with hamstring issues, and most notable of all is that of Glenn Maxwell, who sustained a grade 2 left hamstring tear in the ODI. Now, he's currently touch and go for the start of BBL, so is obviously a big watch, as his selection or non-selection in this case will shape our entire sides, given his price point and the fact that the Stars have the double first up and they play, 5 games in the first 3 rounds or something. So really, he is someone that will make or break people's sides. And I know there's already strategy around, do you fade him? Do you go for short? What's been spoken about is the old switcheroo between Short and Maxi, bringing in the player who is on their double. and so on and so forth. But when it comes to the bowling side of things, it is quite questionable as to whether or not he will. But first and foremost, we need to make sure that he is playing in round one. It might open things up if he isn't available in round one for the double there. It does mean that obviously gives us a fair bit of coin to play with. To the tune of 247.4k, but it means that we'll have to try and get him back in for the Stars double in round 3. So it might actually work in our favour, and it might throw the cat amongst the pigeons, so to speak, with regards to forcing people to choose lineups that aren't so vanilla as things stand with regards to Maxi. Now, the strangest injury was that of Jai Richardson. And I don't know if you've heard this, it might have already happened a week or two ago, but he actually injured his shoulder after high-fiving his teammates following a wicket. Thankfully, though, he did come back into the game after being looked at, but it sure gave all of us prospective owners a bit of a scare. He's been in some ripping form, which I will get into after this as well. I will roll through some of the notable players to be looking at very, very closely with regards to some nice form line in various formats. But let's stick now with the Scorchers for a moment, because Cooper Connolly, he's fractured his hand. Ashton Agar, he's done his shoulder. And Ashton Turner continued the side strain pandemic, and all are very, very unlikely to be available for the start of the BBL. So the Scorchers are in a bit of a world of hurt here, uncharted territory for them, because even though they've got a really deep list, they're in a position now where they have to sort of lean upon that, which might sort of bode well for all of us super coaches out there to potentially find a bit of value. But, when we're talking about value, Ashton Turner is definitely in that category as potentially, a bit of a cash cow bench option, looking towards the round 2 double for the Scorchers. So really is something to keep an eye on, but we will come up with updates as they come to hand. Now onto the Sixers. Enriques, Moises Enriques did a groin, but should be okay for the BBL as it stands at the moment. But Dwarshuis, who is out with a pectoral, injury, and Daniel Hughes, who is nursing an elbow injury, will not be available until a few rounds into the BBL season. Now, rounding us out is the Thunder with Nick Maddinson, the most notable injury, and that only came, would have been a few days ago actually, having broken his finger fielding in club cricket, and he's set to have surgery. So this will likely see him miss a portion of the BBL at the very least, but the full extent is to be determined. So, he could actually miss potentially most of, if not all of the BBL season. So one to keep a watch on, but he was another player that was sort of cheapishly priced, that people were looking at as potential cash cow, would have batted high up the order. And this now lends us to a bit of a butterfly effect here in our favour, because what it does mean is the cheap Constas, the young batter for the Thunder, he comes into calculations for potentially a spot in the top order for the Thunder in their batting lineup behind Warner and Bancroft. Now, this news comes shortly after Constas himself made 107 from 97 balls in the Prime Minister's 11 against India. So a very, very juicy prospect. A lot of people chose him in their sides as, a potential maybe sort of debutant for the Thunder early on, but more so as that sort of bottom-priced cash cow, which, as I said, he's priced at 39.5k and is someone that you definitely want in your side if he is to play early on. Meanwhile, all of McSweeney, Inglis, Webster and Abbott, this is talking in terms of the selection side of things, not so much injury, they could be unavailable for a portion of the tournament to start after being called up to the test squad. Among those, Abbott could be released given Boland in all likelihood will be selected over him in the test team itself. And it doesn't look rosy for the others, especially Webster, with recent rumours of Mitch Marsh not bowling. So Webster's all-round ability and capacity is great insurance for the Aussies. So again, another cat amongst the pigeons there, given the Stars have the double in round 1 and play the 5 games in 3 rounds. So a lot of people had automatically locked Webster into their team. He was one of those locked players in my side, in my initial lineup that I did release in the previous video. But now I don't know if he's going to be available. It might help things. I think it's probably a good thing, as I said earlier, with Maxi, if Webster is out, because it means that, we have to get a little bit more creative with not just our salary cap, but with regards to trying to find, better ways to replace said player. Do you go for another double game week player from the Stars? Do you go for, potentially a Renegades player who's also on the double in the first round, so on and so forth. So we really need to be keeping an eye on that. Not just injuries, but with regards to selection and availability. Now, the Stars, in regards to selection, they've lost Usama Mir, who has been a nice little spin bowling revelation. But the reason being is he has been recalled for international, or in his case, national duties. But this presents upside for McKenzie, it must be said, because he could easily come in as a bit of a cheap replacement. He's priced, or cheapishly enough, at 69.4k as sort of that nice bowling option, crossed over from the Scorchers and has some nice form behind him as well. So is someone that I'm looking at very, very closely. I probably wouldn't consider him if the Stars didn't have the double and they didn't have the 5 games in 3 rounds. But I think opportunity does really present here for McKenzie and for all of us super coaches to have a nice little cash cow. I'm not really expecting too much from him in terms of scoring, but the insurance here is the fact that he does have 2 games to produce a half decent score first up. Now, just on the Stars as well and their bowling setup, they've actually signed Peter Siddle, the old man, the old banana eater himself, for their last remaining list spot. And whilst I personally normally wouldn't consider him given his age and drop off in recent seasons, when he was playing for the Strikers, I had him in my team, and I remember he was kind of being faded out of their team ever so slowly and just wasn't really doing the job considering his role. Now, the big part of this with regards to considering Siddle is his role. And yes, as I said, he's got the age going against him. He's got the drop-off in recent seasons. The fact for me that he could step in to the Stars lineup and take on that death bowling role almost makes him a worthy start for me. Especially when you factor in, as I said, and as I've been saying throughout this entire video, the Stars, they play the 5 games in 3 rounds. But I will say the caveat here for me is the major worry is that he could be rested for some of those double game rounds. But if he does come in at an affordable price point, which as I record this at the moment, he is not available or not selectable in the SuperCoach platform itself. They haven't inputted him yet, but expectations are that he should be priced around about anywhere between 70 to 90k. So if he does come in around about that price point, my interest will be piqued for sure. And it sort of makes me, as I'll show you my lineup in a moment, almost choose between 2 double game week players or double game round players for the 1 spot, because I don't know if I'll be able or I guess be able to squeeze both players into my team, which is a nice little segue here. So let's shift across to my team there. So that's all the news with regards to injuries and selections. But as you can see here, it has changed ever so slightly from the previous selection video that I put out. And we'll go from the top. So I do have Joe Clark as my wicketkeeper. I think I may have had him there previously, or it may have been Sam Harper, I think, because Joe Clark hadn't officially signed with the Stars as yet. Now, full disclosure here, I am actually working with the Melbourne Stars, doing some video work for them across the BBL season. I have been doing so across the WBBL season. I knew about Joe Clark, couldn't say anything, obviously, but yeah, I'm still unsure as to whether or not I will start him in my team. The big thing is with Clark, he hasn't been in the best form leading into BBL. And to me, looking at the options in the wicketkeeper position, it's looking quite scarce in terms of the good quality options, or at least those, at a reasonable price point, which I think Joe Clark is. And, if you look at other options out there, which I think I had Inglis as well in my flex position, which obviously he's gone for the time being anyway, because he is in the test squad. He may be released. If he is released, I don't know if I'll have the funds which I kind of do, but I don't know if I could wrangle them to bring him in, because it would have to come at the expense of one of the pure batters, or, potentially a flex player, which I've got Thornton in at the moment. But, if Inglis comes in, it means I've got one less double game round player from the Stars. It does, I guess, get made up by the fact that, if Inglis plays the double in round 2, it cancels out. But it's something that I'll need to look at very, very closely, because Inglis is at a very high-ish price point compared to Clark, 140.6k. But I'd need to have confirmation that he is going to be playing the double game round in round 2 for Perth, which at this stage I don't know with regards to the timing side of things of when, if they do release Inglis, is he going to be available for both of those games, or will he be only available for one, and so on and so forth. So there are a few factors to factor in, but in terms of looking at other options, we'll just go by ownership here. So Sam Harper, he's still the most owned at 36%. The big thing with Harps is the fact that he is so cheap, 58.5k. It just opens up your entire side with regards to allowing you a fair bit of coin. Like as you can see here, if I select Harper over Joe Clark, it gives me 126.2k. Having already filled my side to then spend. So we still don't know as well if both Harper and Clark are going to play. If they both play in the same lineup, who gets the gloves? That's the other big question. So by no means is Joe Clark lock and load for me. As I said, he's in some relatively ordinary form and higher price point than Harper, and I don't know if he's going to get the gloves. So we really need to be keeping a watch on that, but that's the way things stand. The other option that I was looking at aside from Inglis was Josh Philippe. Now, Josh doesn't have his double until round 3, I think it is. Let me bring it up on screen here. Here it is. So, yeah, so the Sixers don't have their double till round 3. So it does throw out the question, like, if you start Philippe, it means that you're not starting, obviously, an Inglis or a Harper or a Joe Clark who have their doubles before Philippe, which, you could easily start, a Harper or a Clark or an Inglis and then trade them out once they've had their doubles to Philippe, and allow yourself that opportunity to capitalize on that extra double game round by choosing any of those players and then swapping them to Philippe. So I'm not a massive fan of starting Philippe, and that's probably part of the reason why, because I just want to capitalize on the double game rounds as much as I can. Having said all that, we don't want to be falling into the trap where we're selecting players just off the fact that they have a double game round, because there are better players out there that can potentially score just as well, if not better, in a single game round compared to a player that's on a double game round. So, yeah, we want to be looking at that as well. Now, the other player that I'm looking at closely here, who is on a double first up, but costs compared to Joe Clark, there he is there. So, Tim Seifert, I'm looking at here from the Renegades, obviously has a double first up. Compared to Joe Clark, he comes in priced 35k more expensive, roughly. Do we go for him? I think if we are going to deviate from either a Joe Clark or a Sam Harper, we'll probably go down that route. And yeah, we'll just look to trade out Seifert once he's had his double in the first game, and then obviously look to bring him back in potentially when he has his double coming up in round 4. But that's it for the wicketkeeper position at the moment. Aside from that, in the bench position, as you can see, I still have Doran. He will be my loophole option throughout the entire season. Has the DPP bat wicketkeeper position allocated to him, which is very nice in terms of flipping some things around in season. If I do bring in another wicketkeeper, say a Philippe or an Inglis or whoever, or even if I wanted to swing some moves and then trade, Joe Clark down to the batsman category, and it allows me to switch things around. So that's sort of the idea around that, and that won't change. Moving on to the batsman, and I think so. Maxi's still the same. Short is still in my team. Curran's still on the team. Likewise, Stoinis. Overton's the only player that's different from what I can recall from my previous lineup, and he is someone that I'm looking at very closely with regards to preparing for the Strikers round 2 double, as you can see on screen there. If you're watching us on YouTube, it really gives us a bit of a leg up over those teams, which I spoke about in my previous video. You need to diversify your team. You need to prepare, if you can, from the get-go for double game rounds coming up for different sides. You don't want to be, investing all chips in on the Melbourne Stars. You don't want to be doing all chips in for the Renegades and so on and so forth. So we want to diversify things as well, because we don't know what the form is going to be like for the Stars, the Renegades, if they shit the bed in the start of the season. Happened last year with regards to especially Sammy Harper. For people that invested in him, he shit the bed early on, and they were behind their 8 ball. So Overton is the thinking around that, is starting with an additional striker. Bat bowler has been in some, half decent form as well. So he comes into the team. I think he replaced Webster. Webster is he a similar price point? I think he's a little bit cheaper. 164.7, yeah. So I had to virtually find 43k to bring Overton into my team. and that came via the expense of, Inglis and so on and so forth. So Overton is in, and I don't think I'll be changing that bar injury, maybe form. We'll look at that a bit closer in 10 days' time when the first game kicks off. But sticking with Short, sticking with Maxi. The big thing with Maxi, as I said earlier as well, if he's not rolling the arm over, if he is a pure bat, I don't feel comfortable investing. I know it is Maxi, he's an absolute gun, but I don't feel overly comfortable investing 247.4K on a pure bat. We all know he's an absolute gun, but he's coming off an injury. We don't want him to re-aggravate the injury. If that happens on a double game round and he scores poorly, say he's able to score okay in the first game, gets injured in the second, his price is going to absolutely plummet, and it's really going to put a dent in your prospects for the remainder of the season, because that money that you've invested in Maxwell is a fair chunk of your overall salary cap. So we just really need to be keeping that in mind and monitoring that very, very closely. As I said, Curran and Stoinis still in our starting teams. Now, with Stoinis, as I said, he actually has been in really good form, playing for the Abu Dhabi T10 League, and he's been batting at a fairly difficult role midway down the order at 5, and he's had knocks of 42 not out from 18 balls, 42 off 16, and prior to that as well, he's been in some really, really destructive form in the T20 Internationals against Pakistan, which included a very, very nice 61 not out off 27 balls with 5 fours and 5 sixes. And he's also been bowling as well, so during that series in particular. So with the Stars obviously having the round 1 double, I think for me, that in combination with the price point, he's a lock and load. I know I said in the previous video, and it's no surprise, I'm no stranger to it, that he has burnt me in the past, but I think considering the form that he's in, the price point, Stars are on the double, everyone's going to select him. He's actually the most selected player in the game at the moment at 60% ownership. So it does negate the risk there as well. So he is a lock and load. Moving now to the, to the bench. And we have at the moment in our side, Matt Renshaw. So this is kind of, again, leaning upon the fact that the Heat have the double in round 3. So I'm kind of, I guess, foreshadowing things, preparing for that. We don't want to be overly investing, as I said earlier, in any one team. Diversification is the name of the game. But Renshaw at 68.8K, I think the other day, he scored a ton. I think he's playing for Queensland, it might be. So he scored a ton in the Shield. So he is in some really good form. I don't know if he's going to be rolling the arm over for the Heat. Might be sort of a break glass in case of emergency type option. But yeah, he's someone that for me, I am considering, because at that price point, he could prove to be a very nice cash cow. I'm not expecting him to play. Obviously, he only has the double in round 3. I wouldn't be leaning upon him in the first 2 rounds unless I'm trying to, depending on when the Heat play, if I want to try and loophole. But at this stage, I just want him in there to generate a bit of cash, but he's there for the time being. And I think he replaces, it might have been, I don't know if I had Maddens in my team. I should pull it up, my previous team, but you'll have to go back and refer to it. Outside of that, we've got Constas, as I said earlier. I think now his prospects have been enhanced off the back of Nick Maddinson breaking his thumb, finger, whatever it was, and we don't know the timeline on his return. So I think that in combination with the nice form line with Constas scoring the ton in the Prime Minister's 11 and the fact that he is bottom priced, you can't go wrong. He's going to be one of the best cash cows of the season if he can play early on and produce some nice scores as well. Now moving on to the bowlers, and Richo, he was in our team previously. He won't be leaving. The thing with Richo is the fact that despite the fact that he has had this, shoulder scare when he was high-fiving his teammates after a wicket, his form has actually really, really been exceptional, and he's someone that is locked in my team now, considering that he is a bargain basement price. I think he's like 50, 60 odd, 70K cheaper than what he actually should be going upon his averages from previous seasons. But his recent form has been really good in one-day cup games. He's taken 9 wickets, plus, that included a 3-for as well in the Shield against South Australia. And outside of that shoulder dislocation that he had from high-fiving, a little bit of worry considering that he could aggravate it again just purely by bowling, rolling the arm over. But I think at that price point, considering that the Scorchers have the double in round 2, I will be starting him in my team. I don't know if I will be keeping him in my team longer term because I'm a little bit worried about that shoulder, but more so given the fact that he is at that price point, I will need to move someone out at a higher or high-ish price point in order to afford to bring in some bigger price players, come the double game rounds that are coming up post round 2. Next up, alongside him, sorry, just checking that I've got it on screen here for those of you watching us on YouTube, it is Tom Rogers. Now, he was very, very close to being in my lineup initially, but I just think now he presents really, really big upside, The thing with Rogers is the fact that if I just click on him here and we'll roll through, so his break even to start the season, obviously being on the double in round 1, is 78. If we compare his stats from previous seasons, so he only had an average of 39.8 in the 2023-24 season. Prior to that, though, really, really good average. We had averages of 59.6 in the 2022-23 season, and then prior to that as well, he had an average of 56.2 as well in the 2021-2022 season. And he is someone that I think has just, the case of having a bit of a down season. And it happens with quite a few of these players that I have in my team. Zamp is one of those. Richo's one of those. I had Abbott in my team as well, which Rogers is kind of replacing Abbott at this stage. As I mentioned earlier, Abbott has been called into the test squad. I am semi-confident he's going to be released, but I think in terms of trying to capitalize again on value, but also double game rounds early up, he's someone that I think I prefer over Abbott. Abbott is great value, but I think Richardson and Abbott are probably in the same bracket there. I can only afford to have one of those players unless I want to forego, as I said, having one less player on a double game round, which in this case is Rogers. So I'm backing in Rogers to recapture or at least make up the 20-point average difference that he's had last season compared to the 2 seasons prior to that. He's incredible value as well, which if we just have a quick look at that in terms of his end price. In 2022-2023, when he was averaging 59.6, he ended his season priced at 150.3K. So that's already 33K less than what his starting price is this season. And then in the 2021-2022 season, his starting price was 68.1K. So his bottom price that season went up 50K almost on the dot. So again, he is someone that I think can operate as a bit of a cash cow early on, but also capitalize on the fact that he is value and he will be able to score some nice scores you would expect in the double game rounds in round 1 especially. I might look to potentially trade him out in round 2. Obviously, they've got the buy, the gauge in round 3, and then maybe bring him back for the additional double game round in round 4. So that is the thinking with regards to that. And also, I probably should mention as well that Rogers, even though he is a bowler only, he can actually swing the bat as well. So there is that. But I'm sorry, I'm just having a look on the platform here because, I can't believe it. His ownership is only 7%. And I'm a big fan of trying to find little nuggets of, point of differences virtually to get a leg up over the rest of the competition. You can't have a vanilla side, otherwise you're not going to set yourself apart from the rest of the competition and have a bit of a leg up. Preparation is key, obviously, and diversification, all that sort of stuff. But finding the right pods, and for me, especially given that he is on a double, nice price point, good value. It just stacks up for me as someone that I'm very, very keen on. So he wasn't in my team to start, but I think I've talked myself around to him now. Now, next up is his teammate in Richo. I can't recall if I had him in my team in my last lineup, but I've brought him in just for the pure fact that he did have a down season. Yes, another one, but really good value. Can bowl those death overs, much like Rogers. And Rogers, again, speaking to him, has that really nice role to get cheap wickets, playing that death overs role. Richo's another one of those players as well, and normally capitalizes in the back end of an innings. So 97.9K, I think he is good value. I'm just still a little bit worried about him playing both of those games in round 1 for the double, because traditionally, especially last year, he was rested, Kane Richardson. So A little bit worried. He's probably the most expendable of the lot that I have in my bowling lineup at the moment. But that's that with Richo. Alongside him is another Gades player in Adam Zampa. I spoke about him in the previous video. Still in my lineup, 80.1k. Had a down season again, but yeah, as sort of the primary bowling option for the Gades, he is someone that I am very, very keen on. So he is sticking in my team. Now, Mackenzie as well, spoke about him. Crossed over from the Scorchers, faces the Scorchers, his old side, first up in the first match of the season. Hamish Mackenzie, 69.4k, and really nice spin bowler. Looking at his stats last year, so he averaged a 23.5. Let's have a little bit of a look at his breakdown. So he only played the 2 games, but his first game was 77, had 2 wickets, economy rate bonus of 25 points and 12 dot balls as well for those 77 points. And then the second game was in round 7. Only had the score of 17, scored 6 runs, 7 dot balls, 5 economy rate bonus, and a -1 economy rate. But for me, I am a fan for him because of the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, Usama Mir is out of the team now. He was their primary spin bowling option. Mackenzie's the next best. He will step into this role and he should play in round 1, I'm expecting. So at the price point of 69.4k will be a very, very nice cash cow you would expect. Looking onto the bench now for the bowlers, we have Buckingham. I spoke about him earlier. Hopefully he is fit and firing to roll the arm over for the strikers. Have him on my side in preparation for the strikers round 2 double. So again, I'm starting with Short, Overton and Buckingham for the strikers in preparation for the round 2 double. And for the Scorchers, only have the one in Jai Richardson, whereas the previous team had Inglis in my side as well. So I'll have to rely upon trades for round 2 to boost the number of Scorchers and potentially bring in another 1 or 2 strikers as well. But outside of that, alongside him, we have Salzman, the youngster from the Thunder. We don't know if he's going to be playing, but I think for me, I have him on my side. Even if he doesn't play, he might be a handy loophole option because I haven't really done it in previous seasons. I've had kind of more a loophole player as a DPP player that I can switch around like a Doran here, as you can see on my side. But if I can switch Salzman, which again, he's kind of operating as that, DPP swing loophole because he is a bat bowler, I could potentially use that to my advantage. But if Constas doesn't play, I'll probably in all likelihood just keep him because I do think he will come in at some stage or another. And then I've got Doran as well. So Doran's going to be 100% lock in my team. And then Salzman will provide me with another loophole option across multiple lines. So it'd be great to try and loop across 2 lines at the very least. But we do have the flex position now as well to allow us a bit of flexibility, wink, wink, to really help us out there as well. Now, rounding things out, we do have Henry Thornton from the Strikers. Was a bit of a dynamo in his, I think it was his first season back in 2022, 2023, where he averaged a 52.1k. Finished the season priced at 113.5k. And then last season, only averaged a 33.2. He had a bit of a drop away in form. I think he actually got, let's have a quick look at last year's. I think he started like a house on fire and for some reason, no, apologies, I'm thinking of someone else. He didn't actually start like a house on fire, I was right, but he didn't play until round 6. Henry Thornton scored 101 and had 3 wickets. And then round 7 didn't do much. Round 8 scored a 54 with 2 wickets. And then round 9 had 4 dot balls and that was it. And then, yeah, that was done. So he could be a very, very nice option. Very, very cheap, I think, considering what he can produce. As I said, in the 50s, the average 2 seasons ago, dropped away for an average of 30-odd last year, but he's someone that I am very, very keen on. Just in preparation, again, as I said, for the Strikers game. I think I missed mentioning him when I was talking about the Strikers double game round players that I have in my starting team. So he's the 4th if I happened to forget him. What's his ownership at the moment? He's only in 12% of teams. I was expecting him to be in a little bit more, but there you go. Yeah, so he is someone that I have in my team just to help out so I don't have to limit myself in terms of trade strategy. This is part of the reason why I have guys in my team that have double coming up outside of round 1 because I want to be almost a step ahead of the rest of the competition with obviously I have those players in my team that have the immediate double coming up, but also I want to be planning for, doubles beyond that, in a round or 2 rounds beyond that as well, just because I want to be trading in players that have a double coming up, 2 weeks in advance at some stages as well. But that is my team and how things stand at the moment. I do have a bit of a detailed Excel spreadsheet here with a bit of a breakdown, and it helped me last year in terms of, I guess, planning my trades 2-3 rounds in advance. And the way things stand at the moment with regards to the number of double game round players that I have from the stars and the gates, I have 8 at the moment. And I think ideally I'm looking to potentially have an average of 8 double game round players across the entirety of the season for those double game rounds, of course. So that gives me 8 for round 1. Round 2 at the moment, as things stand, without any trades, I will have obviously the strikers and the scorchers, have the double. I've got 4 strikers and 1 scorcher, so that gives me 5 at the moment. And I'd be looking to bring in, additional scorchers and strikers to give me about 7 to 8 potentially. We'll have to wait and see. But then beyond that as well, I have it in this spreadsheet here. I won't unveil it as yet, but it is quite detailed in regards to, I have players listed down that will come into my team, then be traded out the next week and so on and so forth. So if you want me to go through that in another video, I'm happy to do so without giving away all of my intel, of course. But that's kind of the way that I do it. And I do highly encourage people to be doing things this way, just because you see it down on a sheet. I'm a very visual person, and it does help me plan things by doing this. So yeah, looking across round 3, I'll end up having... I think it's going to give me 10 double game round players in round 3. Round 4, I'm looking at 7 to 8 at this stage. So yeah, it really is contingent upon obviously price points and price fluctuations. You want them to go in your favor, because sometimes they don't, obviously due to injuries, form, all that sort of stuff. So this can only help you so far, and you've got to have contingencies along the way to really make sure that you're across things and you're not, putting all chips in one strategy, which, can change at the drop of a hat based upon a player losing money that you didn't expect him to, or a player that's you're hoping to bring into your team cheaper has gone absolutely bananas and he's made, 15K in one round, all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of it for this video. I will discuss that potentially closer to the season if you are keen. Let us know in the comment section down below. But that is it, ladies and gents. Any questions, any comments generally about your own sides, about my side, about players in particular, let me know down in the comment section below. And if you haven't yet, please do consider giving us a like and subscribe. It just does help the channel grow as well. We had amazing growth over the BBL season last year. It blew me away because I didn't realize that there were so many people out there that were keen to be tuning in to the content that I was putting out there. But I will be doing it a little bit more regularly this season. I'll still be doing, of course, my Damo's team talk as I do during the AFL SuperCoach season. And if there is anything else you'd want me to discuss from round to round, let me know, because I could potentially include that in those video entries, but also potentially as another sort of video series if you do prefer as well. So let us know in the comment section down below, as I said. But with that, that is that. Thank you as always for tuning in. And again, we will see you in, we'll touch base hopefully before the start of the SuperCoach season, which, as I end this record now, the countdown clock on the SuperCoach website says 10 days, 3 hours, 46 minutes, and 36 seconds. So until then, we'll see you in the next one. All the best. We'll catch you.